welcome to the Black Curriculum, the video series that answers the following question. What literature and experiences can we share with others to better understand Black lives? Throughout my series, I've taken the time to shed some light on books that I think illustrate both the fictional and non-fictional stories that reflect the Pan-African experience. Occasionally, there may be a new release that correlates with a hot topic in the news. For example, y'all might remember how social media went into a complete frenzy when artist Kanye West got caught slipping and said that slavery was a choice. Well, shortly thereafter, the world was blessed with the release of Barracoon, the story of the last black cargo. Written and published by Zora Neale Hurston, the author of Their Eyes Were Watching God. In this video, I'll give a brief summary of Barracoon, address the significance of interviewing the last known surviving African among the last American slaver called the Clotilda, and point out how the misconception of freedom looked following the Emancipation Proclamation. Barracoon dates back to the late 19th century. It is recorded that Cudjo was born around 1841 in Bante, a small town in West Africa. As a young African who was raised to hunt, build, and protect his family, Cudjo recounts fond memories of training in the Oro, a secret male society made to protect the town. Without warning, an estimated 22,500 Africans were forcibly taken from their homes and sold into slavery. This all happened between the year 1951 and 1960. Cudjo was captured, separated from his family, and transported in the American ship called the Clotilda in 1859. He must have been close to 18 years of age at that time. From his hometown Bante in West Africa to Plateau Magazine Point in Alabama, Cudjo would spend the next 5.5 years as a slave working under the rule of Captain Jim. To the slave owners, he was known as Cudjo Lewis, and once freed, and I use that term lightly, he would spend the next 67 years living on American soil. It was author Zora Neale Hurston who not only took the initiative to track down the last known African survivor in America, but also preserve and help Cudjo to tell his story as best as he can remember it. She first met him in 1927 in Mobile, Alabama. She would then record his story of his upbringing, slavery, and reconstruction of his own life as a former slave living in a foreign land. What makes this series of interviews so important is that it not only gives detail to traumatic events that have affected tens of thousands of men and women, African men and women, his story ultimately shows the soul of a survivor. To be subjected to slavery is to be stripped of your humanity, whether you were born into it or not. Because of the manner in which the transatlantic slave trade basically bulldozed through African lives, he became the only person who could recount such a horrific experience of being born free, becoming a slave, and then being free again. As I've mentioned before, Cudjo was alive to witness the real effects of the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed and put into effect in 1865. It would ultimately take the physical chains off of slaves and allow them to basically figure out life for themselves. Here's where things might get a little controversial. Quote-unquote free slaves were left with a burdening dilemma. Either reconstruct every facet of their lives on their own, educate themselves, find a place to live, build a home, conjure up a way to earn living wages while building some sort of standard of living in a foreign land that only acknowledges you as 3/5 of a man, or work out some deal with your former slave master just to stay out of harm's way. Yeah, Stockholm Syndrome was very real with these former slaves. Moreover, Cudjo's recollection has proven that the Emancipation Proclamation in no way assisted with the economic and financial freedom of former slaves. I'm reminded of Booker T. Washington's autobiography, Up From Slavery, an account in which Washington was confronted with the same dilemma after the Emancipation Proclamation. Thankfully, because of the resiliency of these men and women, the only way to go was up. I highly recommend y'all to read and reflect on Barracoon. To me, this account was a long-lost record that was found to remind us of the evils of the transatlantic slave trade that attempted to strip the humanity of tens upon thousands of African men and women. This has been the Black Curriculum.